Good day. Sir Jem here again to give a brief discussion about globalization and the three major economic international organizations under the course The Contemporary World. In the previous topic, economic globalization is discussed. To recall what economic globalization is, it is the spread of trade, transportation, communication systems on a global scale in the interest of promoting international commerce. Under it has two types of economies, which is protectionism and trade liberalization, wherein protectionism provides barriers such as tariffs and taxes, and trade liberalization is the reduction or elimination of these barriers to promote free trade. To facilitate and monitor movements in the promotion of international commerce, three major organizations were created. The first one is World Bank. World Bank was created in 1945 in response to the Second World War. Okay? It is an international organization with 189 members. These member countries are referred to as shareholders as they actually hold shares in the organizations. The shares that these countries own will depend on the fees that they shared to the World Bank. Since so many countries were shattered by the World War, the organization was established to try to help for the reconstruction and development of the affected countries and, of course, to reduce global poverty. In short, the World Bank provides temporary loans to low-income countries, which were otherwise unable to get these loans on their own. Although the World Bank clearly has the word bank in its name, it's not your typical type of bank. If we look here in the World Bank's mission, it is best seen that its interest is to end extreme poverty and to promote shared prosperity. This is to reduce the total number of the poorest of poor population and to increase the income of the poorest 40% of the population. The main focus is then shifted from reconstructing shattered countries after the war to development of countries in areas such as roads, infrastructures, and irrigation systems. Okay. Next is the International Monetary Fund. Okay. I'm sure most of you have this one as your research. International Monetary Fund was created alongside World Bank in 1945. Okay, sabay ginawa. As overlapping finance arm of the United Nations. The IMF primarily monitors exchange rates, stabilizes international monetary systems, and fosters global financial cooperation. Okay, to help you better understand the goal of IMF, it prevents a domino effect when a collapsing country or economy of a certain nation has dependent countries. Okay? Alam niyo po yung domino, yung pag tinumba niyo yung isa, sunod-sunod na yung iba. Okay? So, ganun po yung pine-prevent ng IMF. Okay? For example, around 2007, Greece found its economy collapsing. Okay? Bumabagsak na yung Greece as it was less and less productive compared to its neighboring EU nations. Okay? So, yung EU po ulit is a trade bloc. Okay? There was also a structural problem that was a result of the ignored loss of tax revenues due to systematic tax evasion. This is where the International Monetary Fund steps in. Countries like Greece are granted emergency loans, okay, in situations like this, to provide assistance to struggling nations. But why did the IMF bravely allow a loan from an unstable economy? Okay? So kung ikaw, nagpapautang ka, utang sa isang nation na alam mong 50-50 or does not have ability para makapayad. Okay, as mentioned, one of the goals of IMF is to prevent a domino effect. Okay, so if ang goal mo talaga is to prevent a domino effect, hindi lang si Greece ang goal mo dito. It's also its neighboring countries. Prevent mo siya from falling apart. Okay? Kasi kailangan ng neighboring countries niya si Greece. Okay? Each nation have other nations that depend on it, whether import of goods, overseas labor and employment, and many others. What do you think will happen if depending country suddenly stops receiving its annual import of goods from the collapsing country? Diba? Tulad natin. Halimbawa, meron sa ating nagsusupply ng ganito, medicine. What if they suddenly stops creating that kind of goods? Hindi na sila nag-import ng medicine. Paano tayo? Okay? Of course, their economy will also be affected, ours. And when their economy is affected, the depending countries of this economy will as well be affected, and so the domino effect goes on. Okay? However, there is a bit disadvantage. Okay? Although, maganda yung goal ng International Monetary Fund, meron siyang disadvantage. Member nations which invest more money in the IMF get more voting rights. Okay? So, pagmasdan nyo yung picture. Just for instance, the United States comprises a fifth of all votes as of 2015, as they are the largest contributor with a $58 billion contribution, thus giving them 16.74% of votes. Okay? So kung magbobotohan tayo, automatic, since kay US, malaki yung portion niya, 16% ng votes sa kanya kagad. What if kung meron pa siyang mga kaalyansa, automatic, malaki na yung portion ng vote. Okay? Additionally, since the IMF is somewhat of a last resort, countries in trouble have no choice but to agree to any measures that may not necessarily be in their best interest or even agree with their ideologies. Okay? And although the IMF is a powerful force in the world, economic balance, it openly serves the interest of its members. Okay? Overall, we may conclude that with so much struggle in the economies of countries, it is dangerous to try and treat problems with simple cash infusions and solutions. Okay? So, of course, with that IMF, countries like Greece may have faced worse alternatives and may have been in a worse situation at present. Okay. So again, whenever you have problems, it is not necessarily good to solve these problems through cash loans. Okay? Let it be your last resort, but if there are other options, you may try that. Okay? Loans are not very good resorts when solving problems or finding solutions for them. Okay? The last one, the World Trade Organization. Okay. The World Trade Organization, or the WTO, is the entity that regulates international trade since January 1st, 1995. There are currently 164 member countries of the organization. The main goal of the WTO is settling a level playing field by enforcing rules. This is to allow the 164 member countries to trade with one another smoothly. Okay? The advantage of having WTO around is 1. In theory, conclusions are created through a majority vote, but in most cases, such conclusions can be made unanimously. 2. Whenever disputes arise, the WTO tries to resolve them through negotiation. Okay. 3. If necessary, the organization can even impose sanctions, okay, on member countries which break the rules. However, this might sound great, but like any other organization out there, WTO also receives criticism. 1. Some citizens believe letting the WTO create rules that their country has to follow is very undemocratic. Okay? 2. In certain cases, the WTO risks hurting people to protect business interests. For example, poor countries that can't afford patent medicine had to wait until patents expire. Okay? These patents are regulations, okay? Or have to wait until a cheaper version is produced. Although the WTO allows them to bypass patent regulations during national emergency situation. Okay? If we have calamity or whatever, katulad ngayon, pandemic, these patent regulations are bypassed. Okay? 3. In other cases, the WTO ends up being accused by businesses because the WTO thinks that if countries bypass patent regulations often, then those who discover the medicine won't make their money back. Okay? That's all. I hope you learned something from this brief discussion. Activities will be posted in the Facebook group. Questions and queries will be entertained through Messenger or a forum post. Thank you.